I worked in here. I started working in the bank in 1937. I was a bookkeeper.
You're a bookkeeper, okay.
Yeah.
And then what'd you do?
Well, later on, I worked there 4 years, and then I went into business for myself. I got in the gas business.
The gas business, the gas station?
Yep, and I started in with a small gas station with 3 pumps, and then I tore it down in a few years, and I built a station. Then I had mechanics, and we did repair work and tune-ups and stuff. I was in the gas business for 40-some years. Yeah, and I finally was wholesaling, as a jobber. I bought direct and had I serviced gas stations and my own too. And then I sold out in '68. And then I went to work for Investors Diversified Services. And I worked for them for 16 years. And I went to all their schools and I was licensed in everything. Annuities,
What was the name of your gas station?
Ryckman Oil Company.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, finally I had 3 stations one time. Well, then I had lease stations. I had 9 of them. And then I had delivered trucks. I had my own tanker. Yeah, a lot of hard work, a lot of hours. But that's good for everybody.
So the gas stations were really needful at that time.
Oh, yes.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I had my gas station right down there, right south of the old hotel.
And how much was a gallon of gas back then that you remember?
When I sold out in '68, it was 34.9, I think, at the pumps.
Okay.
Now it's $3 and something.
And how much was it back when you started the station?
Oh, I was selling gas for five gallon for, I think it was 20-some cents a gallon.
Okay.
Yeah.
How interesting.
But,
Yeah.
a lot of people back then didn't have money either. There was a long time, if a guy got a day's work, at a farm or any place, it was 10 cents an hour, $1 a day, $1 a day. If you had a quarter in your pocket when you come to town, you were lucky. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we went through the, bad times too. Back in the 30s, yeah, 29 and 30 when the banks went down and the stock market, people, if they had money in the bank, they lost it. But the old Kalkaska Bank, they had to close, but they didn't. Nobody lost their money. And I worked for them that's the first job I ever had in the old Kalkaska State Bank. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was a good experience too. Yeah. Yeah, I was bookkeeper there for 4 years, did all the filing, posting. Boy, even with the equipment we had, wasn't like they have today, but we managed to balance the accounts.
And then you went into the war in 1940s, or?
You know, there was a little time in between there.
Mm-hmm.
When I quit the bank, I gave a notice. Well, that's when I went into the gas business. And this drilling company come into town here after a while. I had high-speed gas. And that was really pure oil.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this drilling company were drilling for pure oil. And they came in and got a dealing with me. And they finally talked me into, they said they wanted to buy oil for the rig and everything out there. We were working out around Sharon and through there. They said, have you got a way to deliver it? We'll buy it from you because it's pure oil. And I said, gosh, I wasn't set up for that, but I would just check into it. Well, I had a friend in the Ford business, and he had a truck or a trailer with a tank on. It was around 400 gallons, 350 to 400 gallon. I rented that from him, and I started hauling gas on the site evenings after I'd been in the station. And they he liked the way I would get that thing down into the places, and I could back up. I could drive trucks and back trailers and stuff. And they finally, I turned my station over leased it to another guy. And I went to work for those guys. And I worked with them all the way from Rapid City through way over the other side of Gaylord. And when time I got over there, I got to be a driller. A driller question. I was drilling.
Oh.
And I worked with them for a while. And then my number came up to go to the service.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by being a driller, they thought I was a mechanic, which I had quite a lot of experience with it. Anyway, in the wintertime, it got so cold. It got down around 30, 40 below zero.
Oh, my.
And we couldn't keep the mud going. It would freeze up. The mud pumps would you'd have to take those apart. And it'd be, 30, 35 below zero. And we worked around the clock. I wasn't on he said, night shift. Whatever shift you were on, whatever was the day or evening but you were taking mud pumps, the pumps apart out there in that cold weather. It was pretty miserable, but we did it for a while. But finally we had to close. They sent us down on the big rigs down in Carmel, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife went with me down there, and I had two kids. One was, 4, and the other was about a year old. And we got a place out in the country, close to the only place we could get. My wife's dad had a stroke back home. She was a school teacher, and she had to leave her job to go down there with me. And we were out in the country. And with kids out the country, no running water. And it was kind of tough on her. And I was working sometimes 12-hour shifts. So it wasn't very pleasant.
Right.
And I got my notice for the go to the service.
Oh my.
And I talked to her. I said, you know, she's having it pretty tough down there. And her mother was trying to take care of her dad. And she thought she ought to go home. So that's what we did. Yeah. It wasn't that I was so smart. It was just, you know, it kind of circumstances come along. And of course, when I went into the service, first thing when I told them that, oh, well, they said, we'll get you another deferment. I had 2 deferments. And I told the guy, I said, well, don't go in because we're still debating what to do. And then I went back after my wife and I talked it over. She wanted to kind of go home and help her mother, and her dad was bed off, and my number was up. I said, well, and old George Hunter was the head guy who had to see, and I said, well, he said, I'll go to Springfield and get your deferment tomorrow. And I said, no. I says, I'm going to go in. And all of my friends from high school, like that, they were all in, all that were eligible. And I felt like maybe I'd had 2 deferments, and they could have had another one. Because I was a driller, but at the time, I was still a driller, but I was temporarily down working on the big rig. I worked at towers on the big rig, mill and pipe, and then I was working floors. So, oh gosh, but a long story. But I went into boot camp, and I went to a CB camp. Yeah, and then they sent me right aboard ship. I was out in the Pacific. Yeah, the Philippines, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said, as far as circumstances that come into play that are part of our journey of life.
Yeah.
And how that it was time for you, you know, to go in the service, and you felt that that was the right decision because it not only affected you, but then your wife too, taking care of her family. Yeah. So that was a really good point that you brought up.
Yeah, it's hard to come out and tell you what you did, but why you did it.
And then you went into the service, and you spent how many years there?
Well, I was only in 2 years.
Okay.
See, I went in 44, and I'm 46, but I was into Japan right within 2 weeks after the war was over.
Okay.
And then I was there during the winter in Japan. I tell you, they were beat so bad in Tokyo, from Yokohama to bombed right out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it was just crying for those folks.
Yeah, it was a whole sad situation, to say the least. Yeah. And then you spent your time there and able to go home.
I was there during the winter, and then I came home. It was in 46. by being in the repair force. See, I didn't see, by my experience, they automatically put me in repair force at sea. So I was with a group of, in aboard our ship. There were 900 of us on that ship. And we had some specialists that were putting automatic sighting on the machine guns and aircraft and like that. And of course, I was on repair and diesel and like that on these landing craft. So.
Wow.
But it's all from my past work.
Yeah, because you had that.
I didn't ask for any of it in the service. I just was placed there and I went. Yeah. And I came back. But I tell you, I saw so much. That,
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't forget it. But some of it I do. Yeah. But anyway, I think I've probably taken enough time.
Well, you know, things that we see and go through, and I'm sure that you were so thankful to be back in the States with your family, and just a real appreciation and how God kept you from things. But
yeah.
you know, and so many times when we are overseas or go through situations, it just gives us a grateful heart.
Yeah. But where I wasn't right in the hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
But I would, if a plane or a ship got bombed, we'd have a communication. It was coming in for service. And we had all kinds of service in a protected area, say. And I was trying to think of that one ship. It got bombed, and it was coming in on auxiliary service. But there was 1,900 and some guys missing on that ship when it came in, because it was bombed, and then the fire, and then the ammunition, the anti-aircraft guns were going off in the ship. The guys dove into the water, and the ship was, the paint was practically off in that ship, that big ship, big aircraft carrier. Now, right this morning, I can't say the name of it. It was a big one, but later on, found out that some of those guys that dove off the burning ship, they got picked up with some other ships, but they couldn't come back aboard that ship because of the fire and the damage. And they were steering that ship with underwater steering and bringing it into service.
Is that right?
I remember when they come in, and we had working parties going on there to kind of help clean it up. Yeah, I didn't go on it, but I was being into the repair on diesel with these landing craft. We transported material and stuff to them. Yeah. But it's all it's part of the story. But anyway, I probably said enough.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out, Willard, and sharing things. You know, I love to hear the stories, because being involved in the county of Kalkaska and your businesses and your family and your war experience, we really apprate you sharing that today.
Thank
it
you.
means a lot.
I hope I got it told so you can relate it somewhere.